Once you've recorded and assembled all the pieces, segments, and music of your podcast, and you've gotten the timing between them just right, you can start focusing on mixing them, meaning you can start adjusting the volume levels of the tracks relative to each other to make sure everything sounds even, and also to make sure any overlapping tracks are balanced in such a way that you're hearing the combination of the tracks together the way you want them to be. For this exercise, I've made a couple more minor tweaks to this project. Basically, I just added the rock riff stinger sound effect between each of the other segments, and I've nudged the segments around a bit to accommodate that stinger. If you have access to the exercise files, you can open up the version of this project in the 0404 folder. And really, having only 3 tracks here, this shouldn't be too complicated of a mix. My first concern right now is making sure the volume of the 2 vocal tracks are balanced together well, so that my voice isn't overpowering my interviewee's voice or vice versa. However, when I zoom out a bit and look at these regions, here on track 1, which are the recordings of my voice, we can see clearly here by the waveforms that the audio in the orange or imported regions are slightly louder than the audio in the blue regions. And we can hear that if we listen. To inspire and encourage you to refine your own songwriting process. All right, joining me now is Todd Howard, producer for the audio music segment. So the first thing I want to do is even out my own vocals. Now, there are a couple of ways of doing this. We could use GarageBand's automation tools, which allow you to automatically raise and lower the volume of the track at specific points in the timeline, and I'll show you how to use automation when we get to the music track, but I think in this case, the easier thing to do is to separate the orange or imported regions from the blue regions. That way we can adjust their relative volumes independently of each other. So let's zoom all the way out so we can see all the regions. And the easiest way to separate the regions is to make a copy of the entire track. So I'll select Vox 1, and I'll hold down Option, and drag down. And as you can see, that duplicates that entire track, including all of its contents. I'm going to rename this right away to Vox 2. So I think I'll use Vox 2 for the orange regions and keep the blue regions on Vox 1. It doesn't really matter which is which. So here on Vox 2, I'm going to select and delete all the blue regions. First, I'll click off to deselect everything. Then I'll start clicking blue regions and holding down Shift to get them all. And I'll hit delete. And on Vox 1, I'm going to delete all the orange regions. Again, I'm going to click off to deselect everything, and I can just click each one and delete them. And just like that, I've separated the 2 region types, and I can now play around with their levels. In this case, I can tell by looking at the waveforms that I need to increase the level of the blue regions on Vox 1. Now, you might think to do this simply with the track fader over here. And while that would work to an extent, it doesn't give me as much headroom to increase the level as much as I might need to. Meaning, I might find that I need to drag the fader all the way to the right to bring the level up to where the other tracks are, which will leave me no place to go if I need to further increase the level later after working with the music track or any other tracks I might add. So instead, I'm going to select the Vox 1 track and open up the Smart Controls. And here with the Info button selected, I can come down to the Plugins area, toggle it open, and here I can see which plugin effects are applied to this track, which in this case are the compressor and the EQ. I'm going to click the compressor controls to open them up. Now, I'm not going to get into how to use the compressor and EQ in this course. We have entire courses dedicated to compression and EQ, which I highly suggest you check out. A well-compressed and equalized recording can give your podcast a professional sound that other shows may lack. So be sure to check out the courses Foundations of Audio, Compression and Dynamic Processing, and Foundations of Audio, EQ and Filters. In this case, however, what I'm interested in here is the gain slider. This allows me to increase or decrease the overall level of the track without using the track fader. So I'm going to move this a little bit out of the way so I can move my playhead to the tail end of the orange section that appears right before the blue section. I'm also going to mute the music track for now, so it's not distracting me as I'm listening. And in order to hear any changes I make, I need to enable the compressor by flipping this switch down here. All right, so let's see how this sounds and what we can do with the gain slider. Songwriting tips series that's sure to inspire and encourage you to refine your own songwriting process. All right, joining me now is Todd Howard, producer for the audio music segment. Thanks for joining me today, Todd.
Sure, Garrick. Thanks for having me.
So I think the question that always comes up whenever anyone hears the word producer, whether you're talking about movies, I'm just going to click back and forth between these 2 segments while pressing the space button to compare them. To inspire and encourage you to refine your own producer for the audio music segment, weekly songwriting tips series. That's sure to for the audio music segment. Thanks for joining me today. On top of that, Cliff Goldmacher has another Todd Howard, producer for the audio music segment. Okay, so now that level sounds a little bit more on par with the rest of the vocal track in the project. I'll go ahead and close the compressor. And I think I also want to bring Todd's level down a little bit, as he seems to be a little bit louder than either of my vocal tracks. What exactly does a producer do? What's your role in getting the courses created and online?
Well, in the case of a content producer here, we essentially own the project all the way through from its initial approval, where the content manager brings an author and a table of contents and a course name.
Video tutorials. What exactly
Producer here, we essentially own
producer, whether you're talking about movies.
We essentially own the project all the way.
Okay, so I think the vocal segments are fairly well balanced at this point. Let's look at the music next. I'm going to play this opening theme and listen to how its levels compare to the vocal track when it comes in. Hi, I'm Garrick Chow, and welcome to the Tech. All right, so I think we can bring that level up a little bit. Let's roll back some more. Hi, I'm Garrick Chow, and welcome to the Tech Training Weekly Podcast. Hi, I'm Garrick Chow, and welcome to the Tech Training Weekly Podcast, highlighting the latest. All right, so I brought the level up to the point where I think the music is okay during the portions where it's not overlapping my voice. Let me play that transition for you one more time. Hi, I'm Garrick Chow, and welcome to the Tech. I think that's okay, so let's check out the stinger portions. I'm going to zoom back in a little bit so we can see this better. And listen to this transition of an audio and music course. We have some heavy hitters this week with new videos from both Larry Crane and Bob to refine your own songwriting process. All right, joining me now is Todd Howard, producer for the audio music segment. Okay, so I think those are all right. We should have one more here at the end, or towards the end. Thanks for stopping by.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. This week, Wave Machine Labs. Okay, so those levels sound okay to me, at least where I'm not talking. But let's take a listen to the end here where the music overlaps the vocal track. .com. And that does it for this week. Be sure to check back next week as we focus the spotlight on our business segment and see what's... Okay, so we can already hear that the voice is being overpowered by the music. Now, I could do what we did for the vocal tracks and move the last region of music down to its own track so I can control its level independently of the other music regions. But I actually want a little more control than that in this case. What I want to do is have the music come in at its current volume level, but then become lower in volume when my vocal track comes in. This is referred to as ducking the music level. And we do this with GarageBand's automation tools. To use the automation tools, I come up here and click the Show Hide Automation button. Notice each track now has a menu that currently says volume, which is probably the most common type of automation you'll apply. But if you click that menu, you'll see a list of the other features you can automate. I'll scroll back down to the music track. And I'm going to scroll over a bit so we can see this a little bit better. Now notice this line that's running through this and all the other tracks. If I click on it, I can select that line. This is the automation line or automation envelope. The way this works is that I just need to click on this line to add points where I want the volume to change. So I'm going to line my cursor up just before the beginning of the vocal track region that overlaps the music here. And I'll click to place a point. I'm going to click to the right of that and place another point. And this point I'm going to drag down a bit. Notice that moves the entire rest of the line to the right. This tells me that the volume is being reduced. And let's hear how that sounds. And that does it for this week. Be sure to check back next week as we focus the spotlight on our business segment and see what's new in the latest versions of Microsoft's Office suite of applications. Until then, I'm Garrick Chow, wishing you happy learning. All right, so the music is no longer obscuring the vocal track, and that sounds much better to me. So you can use these automation points to change the volume anywhere you like. For example, maybe I want to bring the music back up for a few seconds after I'm done talking, and then bring it back down to fade completely out. since it does go on for too long at the end. So looking at the waveform up here, I could even use the playhead to help me line this up. That's where I stop talking. So down here, I'll click on the automation line to add another point. And after that, I'll click to add another point and drag this back up to right around its original level. And we'll hear how that sounds. Office suite of applications. Until then, I'm Garrick Chow, wishing you happy learning. And to add that fade point, I just click to add another point and drag all the way down. Chow, wishing you happy learning. If I think that's too abrupt, I can add a point in the middle to let it stay at that level for a little while longer, and maybe I can drag this point all the way to the right. And maybe I can drag this point further to the right. Until then, I'm Garrick Chow, wishing you happy learning. If you need to get rid of any of these points, you can simply select and delete them. So for example, maybe I want to forget the fade at the end altogether and just let the loop play all the way through. I can just select the last control point here, hit delete, and even get rid of these other control points. And just let it play through to the end at this level. And there it is. All right, so I think that's a pretty decent mix of this podcast episode overall. You definitely want to go back and listen to the whole thing again, and I could definitely spend more time tweaking it, but that's the basic idea. Again, be sure to check out my GarageBand Essential Training course, where I go into a lot more detail about mixing with GarageBand, including using the EQ, compression, and the master track.